Chris Makowski for Emerging Civil War. In late June of 1885, Ulysses S. Grant was ensconced on a mountaintop retreat in Wilton, New York, called Mount McGregor, just north of Saratoga Springs, and he was entering sort of the last phase of his writing career as he was getting ready to try to finish his memoirs. But of course, he's dying of throat cancer at the point. He's in extreme, excruciating agony. He's suffering the effects of the cocaine that's used to try to numb the pain. So he's got all sorts of stuff going on. And it's in the midst of all this, on June 27th, that he had his photograph taken, and it's become one of the most iconic images of Ulysses S. Grant. I probably would argue that the most iconic image of Ulysses S. Grant is the one taken at Cold Harbor. He's leaning up against the tree. He's at the peak of his military powers. He's still young. He looks confident, handsome, still slim. His presidential and post-presidential years weren't necessarily kind to his waistline. And he just looks great in that photo. But the photo taken at Mount McGregor is a much different photo. He's sitting in a wicker chair with a knit cap on. He's holding his writing materials in his lap. He's got a blanket over his lap. He's working, writing. Doesn't look weak. Couldn't tell that he's necessarily in a terminal state, but he looks pensive, he looks thoughtful, he looks focused, concentrating, and it has become, I think, just a fantastic image of the writer at work. Now, he's going to have his picture taken again at Mount McGregor on July 20th, just 3 days before he dies. And in that picture, he's sitting again in the same wicker chair, same location on the porch of what is now known as Grant Cottage. It was his favorite work spot. He'd go out there in the morning and work for a couple hours. On the 20th of July is the day he finished his work. In the photo taken that day, he's got his black beaver top hat on. That hat is still at Grant Cottage. Visitors can see it on display there. He's wearing his black overcoat, but he's also wearing slippers as he's sitting there reading a newspaper. And I always like to think of that one as the writer at rest. His work is done. I don't know whether that picture was taken before or after he had finally put his pencil down for the last time, but it is the same day that he finishes his work. And he'll die just a few days later. You can't, again, looking at that picture, he looks old, he maybe looks a little enfeebled, but he doesn't look like he's at death's door, which he literally is by that point. So I love to take a look at these two pictures and just kind of contemplate what was going through Grant's mind, what's going on in his life at that moment, what is he still trying to say. Because of the throat cancer he suffers from, he literally can't say much of anything, and yet he has so much he's trying to get down on paper before he hits that deadline. What didn't he get to write? What didn't he get to say that he wished he had? And he's, of course, got some very poignant moments with his family during that time, too. So I know it's a little difficult in this format to study those pictures. I'm going to post them at Emerging Civil War, so if folks want to just be able to bring them up and look at them, they can have the chance to really kind of get a good, close look at them. But I invite you to consider these two pictures of Grant, the writer at work, the writer at rest. What do they tell you about the man? What do they suggest about the man? What might you be able to learn about him and about you by considering those things? For Emerging Civil War, I'm Chris Makowski.